A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means that adult language is probably going to be present, just so you know. Hey there, you're listening to A Tiny Revolution, a podcast about ordinary people living revolutionary lives, and welcome back, my friends. I'm Kevin Garcia. I am glad you're here. I am so busy. I was out last week because it was the freaking finals week. I did it. I completed my first semester of grad school. Are you proud of me? Thank you so much for your love and affirmation. A couple of announcements before we jump into the conversation. The Q Christian Fellowship Conference is happening in January. You need to get registered by the 31st if you still plan to attend. And I hope you do. Whether you're in the Chicagoland area or you're traveling from afar, I know for me, the Q Christian Fellowship Conference has been a really fantastic place to meet other queer Christians from across the globe. It's exciting to see old friends, make new ones, and then also get to learn from some amazing speakers. With that being said, I want you to come to QCF. I'm going to be there. I'm doing a whole lot. I'm doing worship. I am leading a workshop on sexual ethics. I'm actually not leading. I'm on a panel on sexual ethics with the executive leadership team, plus a couple other people. And on this platform, there's going to be people who are representing sex positivity, non-monogamy. It just makes me really, really excited to have that kind of diversity represented on a QCF stage, because they've never had that before, and that's pretty dope to me. And the last thing I'm doing is I'm having my first ever live show at QCF, which is really, really exciting. And I also have those times, dates, everything. The first thing is my podcast, which is going to feature my friends Matthias Roberts and Caitlin J. Stout. They're coming on the show to give some decent advice out. And then a awesome interview with Lisa and Michael Gungor about their newest body of work, as well as their books and things like that. That's happening 12:30 to 2 on Friday. So it's like a little bit of a short lunch break, but grab your lunch, come back, hang out. It's going to be fantastic. And then Saturday, 3 o'clock is my workshop, or is the panel. And then at 4:30 is my workshop called Let's Talk About Sexual Ethics. So lots of sex, lots of worship this weekend. Who knew that those two things could go hand in hand? I did, because this is stuff I love to talk about. LOL. Moving on to my conversation today. I'm talking with my buddy Melissa Greene. Melissa Greene lives in Nashville, and she's a speaker, singer, curator, pastor, and writer. The first 10 years of her professional ministry career were kind of spent traveling as an artist, and she sang contemporary Christian worship music in Avalon. It's an American Music Award Inspirational Artist of the Year in 2003, Grammy nominated in 2005, and a Dove Award winning group. In 2009, Melissa resigned from her touring and was immediately hired at Grace Point Church, a progressive Christian church out there. After that, Melissa actually began a really cool community called Imaginarium, which is a kind of just like progressive spiritual community, not necessarily Christian. And we actually talk a lot about that in our conversation about what it looks like to transfer, kind of like transition beyond what a Christian is, or post-Christian, or formerly Christian, now just spiritual. It's a really interesting conversation. As someone who has been struggling with my own faith for the past few months, it was a really refreshing conversation where I got to express a lot of my doubts. And Melissa's amazing at holding space for people. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about progressive faith. We're going to be talking about all the things, really. So why don't you grab yourself a nice cup of coffee, and let's jump into this conversation with my friend Melissa Greene. So how you doing, girl?
I'm doing well. I'm just driving back from Atlanta to Nashville.
You were in my city and you did not tell me? We gonna fight?
Well, it was super fast.
No, I'm joking.
Yesterday. I drove in yesterday afternoon for the Troye Sivan concert.
Oh, dope. I had some friends who were going to that.
It was so good.
So good. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
What are you listening to in the background?
Nothing. Just the road.
You know what that is? That is my Spotify playlist continuing to go in the background of my call. Which I'm like,
hear it on my end.
I'm like, oh, this is so delightful. But
you're like, she likes my it's my taste in music.
Well, cool. Thanks for hopping on the line. I'm glad you're with me.
Of course. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. So I already hit record so that I don't forget to do that.
Lovely.
And just know that if there's anything that you don't want to talk about or you want off the record, you can let me know in the middle of our conversation, and I can edit that out later.
Okay, great.
And yeah. So how about to start off, you can just if someone doesn't know who Melissa Greene is, who you are, what you're about, give the people like the cocktail party pitch. Like, who are you? What do you do? What's your thing?
Oh, the cocktail party pitch. Well, I am 39 years old, turning 40 next year.
Yeah.
Really excited about that, actually.
For sure.
I grew up in Florida, live in Nashville, lived here for close to 17 years. I'm married. It'll be 17 years next year to a lovely human named Ben. We have 2 kids, a 12-year-old boy named Hutch and a 9-year-old girl named Haven, who keep us very busy and very happy and very crazy all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit of a Renaissance woman. I do a lot of things and enjoy doing a lot of things and have been able to travel the world and sort of follow my dreams. And I was an artist for a bit, and then I pastored a church and was ordained for 8 years. Or let me say that in reverse. I was ordained and then helped pastor a church for 8 years. I resigned from that for lots of reasons, which we will probably get into, 2 summers ago, and started a fresh expression of a spiritual community called Imaginarium here in Nashville. And so I do that, and I really feel like I'm in the worth business, reminding individuals of our worth, our connection to each other and the world around us, and our responsibility. And I try to let that guide me and lead me, and that's the kind of work I want to be about.
Yeah. When I first met you, it was Wild Goose, like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Something like that. And the thing that just like struck me about you and your whole crew is that y'all been doing something really different with spiritual expression, like you kind of put it, like with Imaginarium and the way y'all are fostering spiritual community outside of a traditional church setting. So if you wouldn't mind, like, unpack Imaginarium for a second, like what it's about and, you know, why that versus just sticking in like a traditional church setting.
Yeah, so after I grew up in the church, and then was a contemporary Christian music artist, and so was involved in professional ministry for 10 years, and then, as I said, pastored a church, co-pastored, so I was the associate pastor, I should say, for 8 years, and I found that the institutional side of religion consistently hurt people. It consistently, the humanity was lost in it, in light of people trying their hardest to maintain an institution.
Yeah.
And after watching that continue to harm people, including myself on the journey, I just started to dream, what would it look like to create a community centered around values instead of doctrines. And everything for me that I learned and know of the story of Jesus and the life of Jesus, for me, Jesus was about the humanity in front of him. And so I started to try to figure out, and in the midst of sort of being hurt by the institution and the church, that dream then began to be, how can I make this a reality? And so Anna Skates and Anna also worked at the church that I worked at. She was the children's pastor. And as we decided we wanted to resign and leave that specific community or institution, I should say, and the institution of Christianity as a whole, we just started to say, how can we transcend and include? How can we take so much of the beauty of what we've experienced about community and about people, and even some of the beauty in the organizational side of things, like the structural side of things, and how do we take that and not do the things that seemingly continue to hurt people. And we had Muslim friends and just people outside of Christian institutional people in our lives. And we thought, we want to create a community that has space for all of us, and a diverse community. And we believe all of life is spiritual. So we wanted to name it spiritual, that we're a fresh expression of a spiritual community. And we realize the more that we can enhance the human experience, the more that we're enhancing our spiritual experience and relating to and cultivating sort of the divine. So that's what we're trying to do. So we're a year in.
Yeah. And how's it going? How's the community? How's this little experiment for you panning out?
I mean, it's going well. It has all the challenges you could imagine because there is no roadmap for us. We are, in essence, the analogy has been we're flying the plane as we're building it. But we're allowing a lot of sort of grace in all of that, that we have figured out some things. Like, our vision is so broad that we can go a lot of different places. Like, the vision comes back to imagining better world and intentionally making it so. And then those three things I mentioned earlier in the conversation, the idea that we are inherently connected to each other and the world around us, responsible to each other and the world around us, and inherently magical, of worth. And so everything just ties back to that. And as we push into that vision, we've learned we can go a lot of places, and we've made mistakes along the way, and just keep being self-critical and adapting, like being willing to be flexible and adapt. And that's because we're trying to not institutionalize this thing, but all the while knowing that that can easily happen. So yeah, it's been good, and we've got a lovely group of people, and we keep naming the diverse, big, broad dream, and grateful for the people that show up and keep pushing ourselves towards the bigger thing.
Yeah, that's actually true fact. Like, I just started seminary this past fall. Like, about, I guess I'm in week 5 of seminary. And
congrats, by the way.
Thank you. It's been challenging because I have been asking very similar questions to you about, like, whether or not I believe in the institution of the church any longer. What does it look like to be a pastor in, like, the 21st century in a way that's effective for the people I'm meant to reach?
Yeah.
And then it kind of scared me, just like the question of just like, what do I look like, or who am I without Christianity? Who am I without the church? And, like, honest to goodness, like, about like 2 weeks ago, I went into full blown, like, crisis of faith, panic attack. I'm gonna lock myself in my room until I can calm down, sort of. And it's just like it brought up all of these questions of just like, right now I know where I'm supposed to be right now, but just like going out from this afterward, like, there is so much I don't know. Like, I sometimes even wonder, like, am I even gonna finish seminary? Because, like, right now, like, what I want to do and the dreams I have, like, don't feel like, I don't know, they don't feel like a traditional church sort of setting.
Right.
And that's scary, especially, like, yeah, I mean, you've gone through this, like, the church was your profession and your life, and, like, that's been the same thing for me. Like, even as, like, a queer Christian, like, I get scared trying to ask those questions.
Well, and that fear, I think it's honing in on what is that fear coming from, right? Because I don't think the questions are in and of themselves wrong. I think we've been told on so many levels growing up in conservative spaces, specifically for me, that questioning things are wrong and you're going to open Pandora's box. And what I found is, like, Pandora's box and the paradoxes are beautiful and telling and very fitting in the human journey. And what's the fear, right? I think that's been a huge part of my journey individually and my journey as a leader and really as a pastor, because I still consider myself very pastoral in the sense of having the privilege of coming alongside people and being a catalyst and helping to nurture their greatest capacity, which I think is the spiritual journey. So I think tapping into what's your fear coming from? Like, where is the fear starting? will be our deepest work, whether that's in Christian spaces or outside of Christian spaces. I think that goes, that's behind all the problems seemingly, I think, that are happening in our nation right now and in our world. Fear so often drives us. And I feel like if we can lasso that fear and figure out what it is and where it comes from, then we can begin to sort of pour water on that fire and push into the fire that can burn some goodness, not some hate. So,
yeah, I think just like the first thing that comes to mind for me is like this fear of loneliness, because like the church creates for itself like its own community structure, its own roadmap, its own kind of like expectations for everybody. And so like within that, I know where I fit, or sort of. And that's that's the other fear or like thing for me is like, I sort of know where I fit. I sort of know how this thing is supposed to go. But honestly, there's a part of me that just like, the conversations I'm looking to have feel like they go outside of the norm, like wanting to talk about something like an expansive faith, wanting to talk about things that I'm learning from other religions or spiritualities outside of Christianity. Like, I put on my Instagram a lot, just like the fact that I read tarot, and people get freaked the fuck out about
We just did a tarot reading last night. That's so funny.
Oh, dope. Did you do it yourself, or did you like do it with a practitioner?
No, we did it. So the group that I went to the Troye Sivan concert with, they went and actually spent the weekend there early, and they visited like a mystic shop. They were staying right downtown, and so there's some mystic shop they walked to. So
it was probably the one at Pond City Market called Modern Mystic.
Yep. So
yeah.
They went and brought the book and the cards, and then they were sort of doing it all weekend. So when my friend and I, Abby, showed up yesterday, because we weren't there all weekend, they ended up doing the reading. So it was so interesting, so intriguing. And I love at the end, which I assume they would do at the end of every reading, which is basically this blessing, like, take what you will, not this is your, this is speaking over you everything that needs to be said, and you need to resonate with it. It was more like, take what you will from this thing, but so much resonated. So sorry. Yeah. Anyways, please tell me more.
No, but that's the thing. Just like because I had a spiritual experience with a friend of mine who's an energy healer. And when I first heard that, I said, this sounds like a load of bullshit, because I've been conditioned to like look at all that thing with just like, with an eye that's so critical of anything that's not from a Christian norm.
Yeah.
And then the thing that my friend said to me was like, do this with me, and either nothing will happen and you'll be unchanged, or something wonderful could happen and you could be changed forever.
Right.
And that experience led me towards just like looking into the ways that other people see the world, other faith traditions see the world.
Yep.
And there's so much from that I've been starting to realize that I resonate with, that goes beyond just the Christian expression. Then you add on top of that, like, as I'm learning in seminary, like how the Bible was formed, how the Christian tradition was formed from an academic side of things.
Yeah.
There's this part of me that's just like, I don't want to say that like I'm seeing behind the curtain, the man working all the levers. But there's a part of me that just like wonders that like, I already wonder like how the church is going to survive, or like, is things like what you're doing, like Imaginarium, like the next evolution of like spiritual journeys for people.
Right. So I think I resonate with so much of what you just said, and have made my way there for different reasons years ago, because I'm just now in seminary too. I'm in my second year. Just so interesting that I chose to go get a Master's of Divinity as I've exited the church. But it's been good thus far. It's been really good. But I say that to say, I think it will be interesting, because there's many people that are very peaceful within the Christian expression, and I'm not out to tear that away from them or tell them,
same.
that that's wrong. But I think there's many of us, for various reasons, that haven't, and you do sense this lifting of the curtain, and you find not the divine behind the curtain. You find the humanity behind the curtain, and then you start to realize that the divine is not hidden behind the curtain. The divine is actually everywhere. So what does that mean? Like, can we go explore? Can we go journey? And that exploration for me has been life-giving. I mean, it has been freeing and life-giving, and to seek truth wherever it may be found, and seek and name like the sacredness of the earth and of humanity, and to push into people and to come curious and open, is something that I've learned later in life, and that has done me good. I mean, that's done well for me to step into this world and continue to almost give people and religion, or all these things that you're mentioning, like, go in giving it the benefit of the doubt, and then maybe truth is not found there. Maybe I find things that don't resonate with me, and that's okay too. Like, to be like, okay, it's not everything is equal, but I don't know. It's a different lens to go into the world with, and it's been beneficial for me and life-giving.
And I think that's something that a lot of people will look at you and me and say is like, they're trying to tear down the church. Or like they're trying to destroy the church. And I will say, to some degree, like, I'm totally down to burn the whole thing down, because, you know, it has its like institutional problems, and like the institutional problems feel so big sometimes that I'm just like, is it worth saving? Is it worth me trying to help contribute to turn the ship around? Or is it worth it to let the whole thing burn down and just still carry Jesus with me anyways? Like, what, and like the question I think about is just like, what if Jesus is leading me? And this is true of so many of my friends. What if Jesus is leading me out of the church?
Listen, that's the vision I had, Kevin. And so 2 years ago, Christmas, a whole bunch of stuff was going on sort of internally within the structures of the church I was a part of and that I was helping to lead. And in the midst of that, I was really trying to discern, like, because I love these people and I still love these people. But I was trying to discern, like, what's next for me. And this was before I felt like I had any clear vision of Imaginarium and whatnot. But I had this vision, and I don't say this lightly, and I've not had visions in my life like this, but it was a very quick, very clear vision of Jesus tapping me on the shoulder and saying, when it helps, use my name. Otherwise, you're continuing in my way. So keep going. And so I took that as, I feel led out of this church. I mean, that's the path that became clearer and clearer, not just out of the church that I was helping to pastor, but out of the institution of church.
Like the Big C church.
The Big C church. And in many ways, it was what you just named, Jesus leading me out, and me feeling like the way of Jesus, and what I said earlier, what I know to be the life of Jesus and what I understand and am impacted by, is I continue to carry with me. And I feel like I am still, you know, if there's good news to be found, I feel like I'm still a part of that good news, but it's not the good news that has been whitewashed or institutionalized or, you know, put together by the empire. I mean, I've done with
not
all
packaged
of that.
And not marketed or.
Yeah. So
I'm
with you.
Yeah. It's weird. And I'm also like, I think it's weird that I'm like, I guess it's not so weird. I mean, you started after the fact, and I'm like starting
right.
At
No,
seminary.
and I'm learning so much in seminary. I think it's lovely, for one, to continue to know the foundations of this religion in which I was brought up, and so many that I'm in community with are brought up in and still surrounded by, especially in the South, South. So I think there's beauty to know the history and the foundations. I also just in general am, and this is the seminary that I'm a part of, there just so many of the classes we've done, community organizing classes, we've done, I just did a class from Dr. Carlton Waterhouse on the theological ethics of Martin Luther King and the Black church. And all of this information is so useful to me in the work that I'm trying to do as a part of Imaginarium, although it's not an institutional church. So like, it's still beneficial, and I hope that you'll find the same. And then if for any reason you don't, then you make decisions from there. But for me, it's been good and helpful. every once in a while. The thing I maybe get tired of doing, which it's often asked to do in seminary, is like, let's talk about, why you became a Christian, or you need to defend why you're no longer a Christian. And I'm tired of defending it. I'm living my life. And
Wait, they literally ask you to just say, so why aren't you a Christian anymore?
Well, that comes up in conversations with students and sometimes in class, depending on what type of a class. It's like there's in so many words, they just want to know, and they want you to be able to defend it. And I'm, in general, tired. I no longer put any effort towards defending my reasonings for leaving. Like, I'll tell my story,
because at the end of the day, it's like, my reasoning is like, it no longer resonated with me and it didn't serve me.
Right.
And just like, if there's a spiritual path that's not causing you to flourish, then why would anybody stay a part of that?
Right.
Like,
right.
I had a friend of mine a few years ago who she was super, she's like, I don't think I want to be a Christian anymore. I'm just like, okay. And like, for that, her was like the most freeing thing to just be able to just like drop that label.
Right.
But I remember her being so scared of that. And that's something that I think that I'm possibly experiencing right now, is like, I still like Jesus. I still love the teachings of the Bible, and I love the arc of the Bible, and how, when viewed through like a good liberation lens, or Asian feminist theology, or Mujerista theology, I can see how like this story can be used for so much good. And it's almost just like, yes, I am a Christian, but then I also feel like so much more than that.
That's lovely. Yeah.
I feel like there's like, it's kind of like what you said, like there's this feeling of like, I'm feeling appeal towards like transcendence and inclusion, like taking the things that I've had so far and continuing even further down this path of where I'm discovering more of where the Spirit of God is moving.
Yeah.
And trying to do that in a way that like doesn't, I guess the thing I'm afraid of with losing the church is like, I think about like how it's currently financially very good for me to stay a Christian, because like a lot of my work is with queer Christians and helping them like reconcile faith and sexuality. And what's interesting is just like, I don't even know if I'm like, I've reconciled my faith and sexuality, and it's grown to a point where like I don't know how much like I care as much. Yeah, it's many, many, many questions.
No, I know. Yeah, I've been there. Totally. And it's not been financially fruitful for me to have left the church, but it's real peaceful. I'll tell you that.
I mean, like, what is it good does it for somebody to gain the whole world, and have a real good paying job, but lose their soul? You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
It's so interesting. So tell me real quick, like, what is like a meeting at Imaginarium like when y'all come together? What does it feel like?
Yeah. Okay. So we meet twice a month on Sunday afternoons at a nonprofit in town called Thistle Farms. That's who we rent from. And they are an amazing organization in and of themselves. So we were happy to partner with them. So we meet at 3:30, and we are multi-generational. That was one of our big pushes in this type of a community. And so we start out all together from birth through adult. And we have 3 spiritual practices now that are part of every gathering. One is called Tell Me Something Good, that we sing with the theme song, obviously. And we name the good in our world. So name the good in your week or in your work or in your family, or that is happening in our nation or in our world. It just becomes a practice of naming the good and giving. There's so much of what we do that give our people voice, because we want them, especially those that have come out of church spaces, they're not used to using their voice, and that ties back to not fully understanding their worth and their value. And so a lot of what we do is helping them understand their worth and value in that literal hour, in that space that we have together, and in their life in the world. So it's a practice of Tell Me Something Good. And then we do a practice, what we're calling a naming practice, where you are introducing yourself to the room, but also sort of claiming your space. And then some of us, and we talk about this, some of us are naming our space and realizing that it needs to be smaller, that we often take up too much space. And others of us need to name ourselves and introduce ourselves and take up the space that we deserve to take up in that room.
Yeah.
That people aren't often used to doing that. And so it's a introductory practice. And then the third is called Stop, Breathe, Know Your Worth. And we put our hands together and tap each of our finger pads to the other. So pinky to pinky, all the way through the thumb. And as you do that, it's an embodied practice. That's one thing we wanted to do because we're trying to remind ourselves of the goodness of the body. And you say, stop, breathe, know your worth. And children actually lead that for us. So we get them on the mic in front of the room, and they lead that. And it's just really precious to hear these little voices do it, but it's also lovely for them to be reminding us, as right now they're in this lovely space where they love their bodies and their body is good and with them. And we as adults need to be reminded of that as well. So we do those spiritual practices, and then we dismiss, and the littles go with Anna into a separate room. And then our adolescents, which they call themselves peeps, they go outside onto our patio for conversation. And then the adults stay in with me. And either I'm teaching, it's sort of split up half and half. Either I'm teaching on a subject and we do dialogue and conversation, or we're bringing in guest speakers from the outside or from inside the community. Because a huge part of our vision was that this would not be hierarchical, that it would not be centered around Anna and I, even as we founded it together, or any one person, and that it would be very diverse representation. So we're constantly, that's been another huge thing that I've learned this year as a white woman, with the platform in Nashville, starting a community, is how to not just long for the diverse vision that we have for a diverse community in all the aspects to come to fruition, but how to do that well. And that comes in building actual relationships. So it's been, the first year has been us like going out and actually starting relationships for people to understand who I am and the vision that we have, and hopefully choosing to be a part of it, and us in the meantime getting donations and money so we can pay people what they deserve for them to be a part of it. So the last meeting, we just started a series called America and Its Social Constructs. And I taught on the background the social construct of race and race in America. And then we've done, the second part of that was on the life of Martin Luther King, based off the lead of my class and Dr. Waterhouse. So we did that in the Black church. And then this next one will be on looking at the difference between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and the Black Panther Party, and the difference between the nightmare and the dream, and how both are still a reality in America. And that will lead us up to an event with Robin Henderson Espinoza, who's leading Dismantling Supremacy Culture. That's at the end of the month. So that's sort of what's happening in October. But those gatherings that's basically how our gatherings are set up. And sometimes we have music. I try to put excellent content in front of our people and for us to sort of be lavished on. So we made lots of fun connections with artists here in Nashville, whether they are dancers or musicians, singers, songwriters, poets. So we try to include the arts when we can. But yeah, so we're trying to grow. I mean, ultimately, we're trying to come together, build a community that will link arms with the greater Nashville community, that will be collaborative and ultimately be growing us and maturing us into our fullest capacity, that should then benefit the world in which we live.
That's fucking dope, dude.
Thanks. Thanks.
That gets me real jazzed up and excited, and oh my gosh, they're actually talking about things that actually matter. What a thing.
Well, we're trying. We're trying. I think that's the other thing I learned in the church is for me, it was in the capital C church, you felt this need to prioritize the learning specifically of the Bible and the stories of the Bible, which is all lovely. I've benefited from that and used those stories to help shape my life. but to understand, the further I got in liberal Christianity, specifically that the Bible was a tool in a constellation of tools, and that then what we taught when we got to gather together with people, if we just kept promoting the teaching solely of the Bible, we were missing out on what was happening, especially the devastating things that are happening within our world and humanity. And an off, like, let's do a book study. You know, you get 20 people to the book study and you'd have 400 people on Sunday morning. It was like, when we have the 400 people together, I think there may be some other things we need to be teaching on. But it didn't make sense in the church. So then I was like, well, let's go build a community where it makes sense.
I love this. I need to come hang out in Nashville is what I'm hearing.
Please.
Ugh. The most. I just thank you for your for this and your story, and just it makes me feel a lot less alone in this whole, you know, questioning, because like right now, like I told myself I'm at least gonna finish the first semester, and then you know, and then and probably just keep going, because like I know that I want to finish this. It's just like it's hard in certain moments. So
no, I know. I get it.
It's weird times, right?
Yeah. Well, and believe me, I've gone through all the questions of just in general, the institution, like education as an institution, and the trappings of that frustrate me on many levels, and that we're playing into this game, which is ultimately still playing into patriarchal supremacy culture in which we live, and figuring out when you play the game to help dismantle the game and when you walk away from that game, because in essence it's hurting everybody. Those are my biggest questions as a human, as a leader, as a pastor, as an 8 on the Enneagram.
Girl, same.
When I know. So this is what I talked about 2 years ago at Wild Goose, which I think will be my first book whenever I get around to it. But it's that idea of burning bridges, and when is it valuable to burn the bridges? And I think sometimes it is valuable, and that's what I've learned in my journey. But you do that. You're not burning bridges out of retaliation. You're burning bridges out of redirection, and redirection that benefits not just you, but benefits actually everyone involved, whether the others realize it or not. I mean, that was my journey out of that church. But sometimes as an 8, we like to burn bridges because we like the fire and the drama.
Girl, you're talk dirty to me, please. Yes.
Yes, learning when to walk away from the matches. But
yeah, and that's the question, isn't it? It's just like, you know, when do I build a bridge? When do I burn the bridge? And it's just it's so hard. I think it's especially tough for me, maybe like to speak from an 8's perspective, and but like I have trouble seeing things from other people's perspectives, in as much as from an institutional perspective, when I look at that and I say, like, y'all, this is not helpful. This is something that's caused harm. Why are we still doing this? And then, because like there are so many people who will look and say, well, like, this is what the church has done for me, and like, you know, a litany of good things. And it feels difficult, and it feels lonely sometimes. And I don't think this is an 8 thing. I just think that's anybody who's like having these kind of questions.
Yes. Yeah.
Because all I want at the end of the, I guess, like, if there's this thing, at least, like, you know, if I'm being real honest with, like, at the end of the day, like, I just want to know that I belong somewhere. And I think that there's this longing in so many people that, like, that we just want to know that we're going to be cared for. And maybe even, like, if we want to go back to childhood wounds of an 8, that we're not going to be betrayed.
Yeah.
And I think that is, like, the scariest thing to ask for or to do, is to learn how to trust in a group of people, or to trust in anybody, and trust that they have your best interests at heart, and that they actually are going to follow through on their promises to you, that they will stand by you, and that they will love you, and that they will support whatever journey you're on. And that's scary for me to, like, wonder outside of the norm.
Okay, two things that I've learned. One that I heard someone say at a retreat recently that I want to pass along because it's been so good for me. But let me go to the second first. I think I have learned that you will be betrayed and you will be okay. You will be okay. No, I mean, that is a damn good lesson to learn. I am still willing to go in trusting people and giving people the benefit of the doubt, all the while holding the paradox that I will be betrayed, because it has happened over and over again with people, and the people that I would have never thought would betray me are no longer journeying a life with me. Like, that's happened, and that's a reality. And guess what? I'm still okay. Like, I am okay. And so I think betrayal does not equal death. Betrayal does not equal you not being able to exist in this world. Like, I'm willing to hold that paradox now, and have found peace with it. And then the second thing, the first thing, so at that retreat, I think it was Felina Huritz. And if it wasn't, she would say something like this, so she deserves to be quoted. But she said, I found something to the extent of, I was so worried about not belonging to the church or to the said community or to the said group. And in realizing and stepping out of that space where I needed so much to belong to them, I realized that I actually belong to the whole world. And what does that mean? Like, what kind of a comfort can that bring us? And I mean, that's where I'm standing today, Kevin, is like feeling like, okay, we belong to the whole world, and building a community, even like Imaginarium. I'm trying to create a community that would have space and a table to fit the whole world, knowing that I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to miss out on the type of chair for the type of person that I'm not seeing well, and I need to figure out my lenses and how to keep clearing them up, and that will journey in that. But that's what we are trying to do. That's what I'm trying to understand, and that God and the universe is all of it, and it's all sitting here. They have the seeds of goodness in us and in this world, and let's go cultivate and water that wherever we can find it. And in the meantime, we'll come across some weeds, but maybe we find out that the weeds are prettier than the flowers we picked. And,
Honey, the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed,
There it is.
It starts off a little tiny thing, and then it takes over the whole damn garden.
Yeah.
Because it's a weed.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Everything you were just saying right now, Braving the Wilderness, Brene Brown.
Yeah.
Just like, what does it look like to belong to myself as well?
Yes. Oh gosh.
To have this sense of home within my own body and person, and know that like the validation I'm seeking. I actually, like, the tarot reading I did yesterday, like was talking directly to this. Like, why are you worried about like trying to get validation from other people? Like, God has already validated you. God has already given you the permission slip. Why are you how many times, and this is the idea of karma, right? That you just go through the same thing until you learn the lesson.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how many times am I going to go through this thing, through these same questions, before I start realizing exactly what you just said?
Right.
Huh.
Yeah. I think that some of our deepest work to do in general is helping us and helping individuals understand. Like, that's why I Am Magic is sort of one of our phrases that we use, like helping. I think before you can get on to having and understanding the deeper connections that we have to each other and the human family and the earth and the world, and the divine, and then our responsibilities, you have to understand who you are and your place and your capacity and your worth and existence and how much that matters.
Yeah.
So.
Dang.
Come visit Nashville.
On my way. Hey, you know what? Sign me up. I'll come do something. I don't know.
Great.
Hang out, participate, sing a song, read a poem, speak.
Oh yes, you sing too. I forget this.
Oh, girl, you know I'm a worship artist at heart.
I love it.
That was my conversation with my friend Melissa Greene. You can connect with Melissa across social media at Melissa Greene. That's Greene. And be sure to check out Imaginarium next time you're in Nashville, or if you live in Nashville. They can be found at www.imaginarium.life. A Tiny Revolution is supported in part by 145 amazing people on Patreon. If you didn't know what Patreon is, it is like literally the coolest and easiest way to support the creatives in your life that are making the content that matters. So if you think that this podcast is helpful to you in any way whatsoever, if the YouTube videos that I've been making have been formative in your development, I would really love for you to become a supporting partner. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/thekevingarcia and you can become a sustaining partner. Also, be on the lookout on my social media for the Kickstarter campaign for Queerly Beloved Tees. Queerly Beloved is the t-shirt company I started with my friend Donald, and we are kind of just taking the means of production into our own hands. We're going to be taking care of our own stock orders and filling orders and our own website, and it's just going to be a better way for us to serve people that we connect with, to make better quality products and more products that we actually like and that you actually might want to wear. And additionally, it's just really cool. I'm becoming a business owner. So if you want to become a part of that, as well as getting a lot of free swag, there's going to be amazing rewards for that Kickstarter campaign. Not to mention there's amazing awards on Patreon. I'm also releasing my Christmas EP next week. So if you want to get on that, it's a special offer. It ends December 31st. Just become a patron at $10 or more per month. You'll get that. You'll get the meditations. You'll get the new podcast called Decent Advice, which premieres on Sunday, by the way. And what else is the hell's going on? So many things. Just go check it out. It's all on patreon.com/thekevingarcia. And I think that is everything from me. I'll see y'all at the Q Christian Fellowship Conference. Again, go to qchristian.org to get all the information there. I love you. You're beautiful. And till next time, go talk to your therapist, take your medication, drink some water, eat something delicious, move your body. I started working out again for the first time in weeks because I'm trying to get a little sexy for the conference. I am looking for my mighty Boaz. If you're out there, slide into my DMs. They're open. And until next time, my friends, this has been another episode of A Tiny Revolution. My name is Kevin Garcia, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.